Hello and welcome to the Believe Me Movement podcast. Today, for the first time, we have an eyewitness who just had a sighting of multiple UFOs, including a black triangle and what appears to be a mothership, which we have the video to back up the story. It all happened Friday night, February 7th, in Flat Rock, Michigan. Our special guest in the seat of honor today is Terry. Ken, is Terry ready?
Yes, Robin. Terry, please tell us your story.
Thanks, Robin. Ken, thanks for having me on. I will tell you, it was Friday night. I just come home, and it was cold here in Flat Rock. It was like low 20s and like a mild wind, but it was a clear sky. I mean, one of those beautiful winter skies with all the stars are out, and it was about 3/4 moon. And so I come home and let the dog out, and she runs across the driveway, and she don't like the cold, so she come right back in. But I stayed outside for a few minutes because looking at the sky because it was so nice. And I seen a real bright white light, brighter than all the other ones except for the moon, and it was to the west. I said, that's unusual. I mean, you see Venus and stuff like that. You know, that's just pretty bright sometimes, but to the west, I've never seen anything right there. And so I started watching it, and just for a few minutes, and I'm going to go back in. And then all of a sudden, it starts moving a little bit. It drops down a little bit, moves over, and it moves over the other direction, and not very fast, but discernible. And I said, "Holy crap! What the hell?" And so I said, "So I'm just trying to get my composure and figure out what to do, actually." So I started watching it, and it was doing basically the same things, short little bites of movement. And so I called a friend that lives nearby, and I said, "Look, I need you to go outside real quick. Go on the deck and look out over where our clubhouse is, and that's the direction where this light was." And she says, "Okay, what now?" I said, "I don't know. I just see something moving up there." I said, I just need you to verify it for me." So she finally gets on, and I said, "I'm testing her now." I said, because my background was in law enforcement, and I was a detective at one time. So I said, "What do you see?" She says, "Well, I see this thing coming down and to the left, not very far, and then up again." I said, "Oh my God." I said, "It's exactly what I'm seeing." And then I said, "Well, just go back in and watch it. I'm just going to watch it and put it on my phone and start getting copies of this." So she goes back in, and I didn't talk to her the rest of the time. And so I'm watching this thing goes back up a little bit, and then goes down and, well, when she said it was going down to the right, that was the objects down and to the right. It would be my left. Mm-hmm. And and then it went across. It would be to my right, to its left, and then went back in the same position. And I call thing number one because there was multiple things I seen. So then shortly after that, there was a plane come by from Metro Airport's about 20 minutes from us. And so the plane come by, and this thing didn't move a lick. It just stayed right where it was the entire time. Nothing else moving. And you could hear the plane coming up and coming by and go slowly. And this thing didn't move at all until it got way past going south and way past where we are at. And finally it kind of tapered off the volume. And then this thing started moving again. And it started doing like little jumps, like going down a little bit at a time and then going right back up, short little bursts. And so then at this time, I'm looking around, see what else is up here. And I look down to about my 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and it's way down to the right, left of me, to about my 7, 8 o'clock. And I see 3 pretty dim lights, like in a triangle, but it was a flattened triangle. If you look at the pyramid and you took part of the top off, that's kind of what it looked like. But they were really dim, and 2 were brighter than the third one. So I looked around, and there was a white light to the right, my right, of the number 1 object, and it was pretty bright too, but not quite as bright as the number one. And it looked like it was flashing. The number one craft I first seen looks like it's flashing. I'm seeing little bits of flash, and you can see small movements too, not just darting in one direction, but you could see basically stationary, but moving. And so then I noticed on to the right, my bottom right, which would be about 4 or 5 o'clock from the number one craft, there was a light brown, looks like a light brown or yellowish light that was way down and pretty dim. I said, well, that's kind of a weird color, you know. Everything else is really bright, crystal white in that midnight sun. I wish. In that moonlit night, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's down there to the right, and I don't think it's moving, but I kind of I have a house that's next to me that has a flat roof, so I use that as an orientation for the object, and I try to keep my phone, the camera, with that orientation to help me discern any movements. So I kind of locked in on that little one on the bottom right, and I didn't really notice anything. So I go back to the number one. I'm looking around. Then there's straight ahead, up and over to my left, about 11 o'clock, a little higher up, quite a bit higher up, was another white light. Now, I don't know what that was. I didn't see it come in, but I just happened to notice it. And so I go back to number one here, and then I go back to the little brown one, see if it's moved, and it looked like it has moved a little bit. Now, it could have been maybe my orientation was off from the roof, but it did look like it moved from the original point of where I spotted it. And then I go back to number one, and just to my left, I see a flash of white light, and from the top to the bottom, from high elevation to down to the midpoint where this number one craft is, I see something come down, straight down and stop dead. And I said, I'm talking in the phone because he has a recorder, and I'm swearing. I said, holy Christ, what the hell's going on here? You know, and I'm losing a little bit, you know, because, you know, that's the last thing I expected, you know, and it was really cold out, so I'm doing my best to hold the phone steady, but I'm trying to look over the phone to see if I see anything else outside the viewer. And then I see another one where that one dropped down. That was a pretty bright light, but it's smaller than number one. And just to the left of that, there was another one there, but it was a brown light, not as brown as the one to my 4 o'clock that I thought that looked pretty dim. But now I think it's moving up. I really do. And I think it goes away for a little while, but it'll come back in some of my other videos. It'll show up. It shows up to about 4 o'clock, and it stays a same distance from that number one craft at about the 4 o'clock altitude from number one, and it stays there in the same orientation as number one. You know, you could put a ruler on it, and it would stay right there. So I'm just trying to gather all this, and I'm trying to talk in the phone and explain all the orientations of what I see, and then see what happens next. I didn't write anything down. I'm just doing it all from memory.
That's okay.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious. Do you think that the ships were on some sort of a mission, and that they were communicating to each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what I was talking to Ken about. I had like real bad anxiety. I felt like a pressure on my chest, you know, and I said, why am I doing this? I mean, it's, you know, I'm seeing something to me for the first time. You know, I've never seen anything like this. And so I felt some anxiety. I'm feeling it now, actually, talking about it.
Oh, that's understandable for sure. This was out of your comfort zone, and yet it sounds like you were summoned to record it. I mean, in spite of the fact that you were freezing, you are very detailed, even in your recall. Like you said, you talked into the video that people will have the opportunity to see when it gets posted. but your recall is stunning. And your devotion to this being as accurate as possible, depicts your background as a detective, that this was really important for you to do, even though you didn't know why you were doing it.
I think that's pretty true.
Yeah, Terry, when you came to my house and we previewed the video, remember the one time you spotted, we saw on the video for a very short time a clear picture of a black triangle with lights on the corner.
Yes. I think it was moving, like in place, a little bit, and you could see on certain occasions a black triangle, plain as day, with white lights on each corner. And now I don't know what that orientation is, whether it was facing up, facing down, but I could clearly see white lights every now and then. So I don't know if it was a full triangle or it was a flat triangle. I don't know what it was, but
well, what
Ken,
I saw
you just threw me a second there.
Yeah.
So quickly on my background, I'm a retired law enforcement officer, cop from a city in the Midwest, adjacent to a major hub, a major city, and we were very busy, and so it was my job to take reports and all that kind of stuff. I did a full career there, detective. I spent 4 years on loan with the feds, with the Department of Justice. I was a SWAT team member. I was a SWAT team instructor. So I left the PD and started working in security, like corporate security, private security, and during my time, I actually guarded 4 presidents and the Pope. I think it was like 1993 or 94, somewhere around there. Wow. So, and then I've had it's corporate security and institutional. So I've done a lot of things, and I've testified on the stand a lot. And as a detective was part of my time there. I really enjoyed it, and everything is about detail, and that's my background. And here's the other thing too. I don't really talk about a lot, but I've had a pretty busy career. I have a wall full of medals and pins and everything, and I've been shot at. People tried to kill me many times. I've been in a million fights. I've broken all my fingers. I have multiple surgeries. So I've been mixed up in stuff, and I've never been this anxious. I tell you what, I've been shot at, and I've never been this anxious. Thank God it missed, but right now I feel that anxiety again, right in my chest, and I think it's probably normal. I don't do this often, so I think it's kind of normal. And Robin, if I'm offline, tell me so. But my anxiety, I think, goes back to the first viewing there.
Yes, I absolutely can feel your anxiety, and I know you don't know me, and so it's really important if I say something that you know isn't true or you feel isn't true, that you jump in and you say so, because I don't want to come at you. I want us to collaborate, and of course Ken
right.
Is welcome to speak up at any time. But this anxiety that you're feeling in your chest, is there any way if you could ask it, if it's yours, someone else's, or a combination of energy?
Oh, I wouldn't know how to do that.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say. So do I have your permission to look at it and see it, because you can't look at it yourself?
Surely, yeah. And I got the hair raising on my arms right now.
Okay, so
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I do feel like this is your anxiety, and I feel like what happened is, even though you were in complete control, you felt like you were out of control, meaning that you were summoned by these extraterrestrials to go out into your yard and see this and videotape this in the way that you did. And this is almost like a cosmic assignment that you had. And so even though you've been involved with the most sophisticated and powerful people on the planet, this is different. You were summoned by something intergalactic in nature. And it was your nature to respond and follow protocol and record it in the way that you did. Does that resonate to you?
Yeah, I've always had the curiosity, and when I grew up in the early 50s, and my dad was always a believer. Early 50s when all the monster movies come out, and those great black and white ones with the strings on the stuff. I watched all of them, but he was a believer in UFOs because I remember him telling me, and I was a young age, he said, these things come around every 7 years. Now, I don't know if he made that up or what, but, he believed it. And this was about 7 years after Roswell, actually. And that's when the UFO movies were actually coming out. So I've always been interested. It's a mystery of it, and so, but I stayed outside the whole time. I was freezing my ass off, and my fingers were so numb. I dropped the phone twice off the deck onto the driveway. Had to go back down and pick it up. And later in the videos, I went and sat down on the steps. As cold as it was, I sat my butt in a bunch of snow and ice, but I wasn't moving. I wasn't missing a minute of this,
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up taking 13 short videos. They were anywhere from 34 seconds to 19 minutes. And a couple of them didn't turn out. They were just, for whatever reason, it was just blank page, blank screen looking at the sky with nothing going on, no movement at all. And that was odd because I was recording, but nothing was moving. And then one was, I think I flashed over to the moon, and there was a bright flash across the screen. But I have several pretty good videos, and they're not all centered perfectly because I'm looking around. When that thing dropped out of the sky on my left, I think, what the hell's going on? And then I had this deep feeling that this was a ship that was in trouble. It was in distress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And why would it be here? This is not a fly zone for UFOs, and it was just odd, and with all these things coming around at once, that was a feeling I got. And at the meantime, that the brown it turns out to be a craft probably at my 4 o'clock moved went towards this number one craft, and I said stayed at a certain distance away from it. Then
so
I watched.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So all right. So as you were viewing this and you're speaking about it now, has your anxiety level gone down or is it still the same?
Right now it's about the same.
Okay.
I didn't sleep for a couple of days, and I kept thinking, first of all, what do I do with this video? Who do I go to? I'm not calling my cop buddies, and say, they got better things to do than look at some ex-copper's video. Anyway, so I said I'm going to go see Ken. I'd met him a while back. There was something in the clubhouse, and he had some books for sale there. My ex-wife went in, bought the book for me. She goes, "Boy, this is right up your alley." I said, "Let me see it." I said, "God, I got to go back and see this guy." So I went in, and he signed a book for me. We talked for a while, and that's the last I've seen him. And then when this happened, I said, I'm not going to call the cops. Do I call MUFON? I went on YouTube Facebook, and I sent a message to Travis Taylor, Dr. Travis Taylor. He seems very legit at what he does with Skinwalker, and I've seen him on several shows. Mm-hmm. And so I sent him a message, say, I have this video. I'm serious. I think it's something to see. And I never received anything back. So that's when I went to Ken, and I said, Ken, this is what I got, man. What do I do? And then he says, this is crazy that this all happened on this Friday night. And then he mentioned that you and the podcast and that's we start taking off from there, and then we start viewing some of the videos, and he's seeing everything I explained is in the video, so, and it's nothing, and I try to be as articulate as I can. I don't want to make anything up because the video is going to show it, and it wouldn't be like me to do that anyway. To make up a UFO story and tell everybody that I seen a UFO, unless I had absolute proof. This didn't land. There's nothing on the ground. Yeah, I mean, there's no markers on the ground where this thing landed, like in some other, events. But I'm ready. I'm getting ready to. I would get in the car if this thing crashed or something or came down. I was heading that way.
Well, it's interesting because when I was asking you about the anxiety, I was feeling like you were feeling some of the anxiety you were feeling was what the extraterrestrials were feeling in the ships. And then you said that you were concerned that maybe there was a ship that was having a problem and the mission was sort of a rescue situation. Now, the book that Terry is referring to that Ken Sylvester wrote is a best-selling book on Amazon. It's called We're Not Alone and Here's the Proof. And so this is part of what was the setup for Terry to be summoned to go outside and look up in the sky and see these extraterrestrials in their ships. Now, obviously, they wanted to be seen. A lot of times they don't. That's why they hide behind clouds or whatever it is that they do. They wanted you to see them. And I'm actually sensing the spirit of your father. What's your father's name?
Bernie. James
Bernie.
Bernard. Yes.
Yeah, James Bernard, Bernie. He's here, and he's very excited. He says that he has been having correspondence with extraterrestrials since he crossed over, that it's been a great opportunity for him, that he realizes now that he had communication with them in previous incarnations, and that he's kind of always had relationships with them, and that part of the reason why you became his son was so that he could plant that seed in you so that someday when your soul mission came to be activated, you'd be ready for it, which is now. Your father's saying that all of your background, being a cop and working for the government and protecting presidents and all of that sort of thing, was a precursor for what you did on that Friday night, February 7th.
Wow.
And the odds are that you will begin to have experiences with extraterrestrials. My thought is that you've had them like your dad did in previous incarnations. And I realize you may not believe in previous incarnations. You may need to contemplate that and look at it as, even your imagination, whatever, but just expand the idea that as a soul, you are eternal. And the odds are you've lived more than one time and that you probably have had multiple missions. My sense is that you and Ken, and probably myself, but certainly with Ken, you two have known each other in previous incarnations. Now, on Friday night, February 7th, in the afternoon, I had called Ken, and I had told Ken that I was being told by an extraterrestrial that we communicate with by the name of Beanie that he was going to be taken aboard ship. There's a particular Pleiadian ship that Ken and I evidently have been transported to in this lifetime, in other lifetimes as well. But Beanie came in and said that he was going to have an experience that night. So the very day and night that I had called Ken and told him that to be aware that he may have an experience, you go outside and videotape actual videotape that's very authentic by a very legitimate person, this activity. Now, I find it very interesting that you mentioned your ex-wife, because another thing that I have seen about you in past lives, you were, what did they call it? Knights of Templar. Have you ever heard of them?
The Templars? Yes, I have.
Okay. So, and again, I realize I may be stretching what you're able to accept, but I was told when I was listening to your energy that you were a Knights of Templar, and that you were very active in that, and I got in more than one lifetime. Now, during those incarnations, you would have been required to have been celibate. So here you are telling me that your background has been, protector, warrior, military, cop, all of that, which obviously is similar to Knights of Templar. And so it didn't surprise me that you mentioned that your wife was an ex-wife, because it would have been difficult for you to be in relationship with women or a woman, given that your path was so similar to these other incarnations, when you were very protective of the original teachings of Christ and all that sort of thing.
It's difficult to be a cop's wife, I tell you. It's a high-stress job, but, you know, I was able to compartmentalize almost everything. I worked the Northwestern Airlines 255 crash at the airport. I was like one of the first responders, like within 45 minutes, and the fires were just going out, and people were everywhere. We lost 250 souls.
Wow.
One little girl was found in a nose cone. The nose cone separated from the ship, and it went underneath an overpass, and she got tucked into a little corner. I think she was only like 2.5 or something. And I've seen her recently, probably in the last 2 years, on television, and she had moved away, and her part of her family took her, but she lost her parents that night. And but I've seen everything, you know, really bad stuff. But I've been able to compartmentalize it.
But this one, you're not compartmentalizing. This one is, and that's what's new for you. Compartmentalization, sometimes people do it and it's a negative thing, but sometimes they do it and it's a really positive thing. And obviously, you used it in a way that was very beneficial. It allowed you to continue. But part of your anxiety is that you can't compartmentalize this. This is so in the forefront of yourself experientially, and it's opening you up to who you are as a soul. Now, the other thing, Terry, that I was told is that everything you've done previously actually wasn't honoring. It was leading you up to your soul purpose, but it actually wasn't your soul purpose. Your soul purpose is to be gentle with yourself, because you are a very sophisticated and old soul. You've been around for a long time, and you have a lot of integrity. And these particular extraterrestrials trusted you to be the one who videotaped them. And that is a really big deal. These had to have been very benevolent extraterrestrials. Yeah, how are you feeling now? Did you feel your energy shift at all yet?
A little bit. Yeah, I feel a little better talking to you, actually. I don't feel it moving out of me yet, but I feel better, if that's what you meant. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the funny thing you mentioned about my dad, if my mom's around, she would have told him to sit down. You know, he liked to talk and make jokes sometimes, and she had heard enough of it. Just go sit down, Bern.
What's her name?
Rena.
Rena? Okay.
Yeah,
she's actually a little shy. She's not totally comfortable coming into this conversation, which I guess makes sense, because if she used to tell him to sit down, whereas he's really boisterous and could take up the whole show. So
sometimes.
Robin, if I could jump in for a minute, I was going to ask you to. Comment I wanted to make that, you know, and all this for me too, you know, as we know, and I've talked on the podcast, I felt guided this whole time going back when I started writing the book. And then I did the book signing, and I met some great people. But to then have, knowing that I was abducted that night, not abducted, actually, I was a volunteer, an experiencer. I wanted to go, and they were benevolent. They were not abducting me. And for Terry to walk in on Sunday after what you had told me, so you can imagine how I felt when he walked in that door and had video that he was a couple blocks from my house. And I'm still trying to process all that. That was just, it still gives me the chills big time repeating that again.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's really important is that, you know, it's very difficult, I think, for men more than women, not to be sexist, but you guys are really, really, really open-minded and open-hearted and very special souls to be willing to admit that you're having experiences that are outside of your comfort zone, and to verify and speak about publicly that you've had these experiences and they're new to you, and to just open yourselves up and to publicly share this collaboration of this really quite miraculous series of events to the point we're actually discussing it on the Believe Me Movement podcast. So go ahead, Ken, or whoever was going to talk.
I just had, go ahead, Terry.
No, Ken, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yes, I had another question actually for Robin. Robin, when she first looked at this sighting, said that basically you picked up telepathically on what was going on. They were on a rescue mission, and she also picked up that there was multiple different types of aliens in ships, and that's probably why normally you see the same type ships, but you saw a couple different ships. We have a triangle, we have a brown ship, and you had some other ones, and so that verified what Robin had said, that there were other aliens, races helping this ship out.
See, that's crazy, Robin. That just blows my mind, actually.
Well, it's cosmic collaboration, and what we're seeing more and more is that, you know, let's just call them the bad ETs, and what I mean by that is the ETs who will abduct us against our free will, and perhaps they've gotten some sort of doorway in because of maybe a treaty with the president or something of that nature. But the bottom line is there are other extraterrestrials who only will work with us in accordance with our free will. And they are the ones who seek out people who are legitimate, who don't make up stuff, who have integrity, so that as they are exposed, it's exposed in this sort of way. Now, what's happening, I believe anyway, because of what I'm seeing psychically, is that the good ETs have like discovered each other. Like, I don't think they all knew about each other, and perhaps not even all the different races of the bad ETs know about each other, or perhaps the ones that do are battling each other for Earth as well. But these good ETs are collaborating together, and they are different species, and they are working together. And if you think about it, it's even like the human race, right? We have different colored skin, or we have different cultures, or whatever it is. But hopefully, in the end, we're all going to work together, and that's what we're seeing with these benevolent extraterrestrials. And Terry, if I'm not overwhelming you, I'd like to give you some more insights that I have been seeing with you. Is that okay?
Sure. You're blowing my mind already.
Okay. So
I don't think you're very far off so far.
If I can interrupt just a second, Robin, that we're nearing our time. You still got another 5 minutes.
Well, why don't we go ahead and close up this show, and then we'll go ahead and do another one. So let's just know that there's going to be another show where I will be giving Terry more information about his soul and why these particular ETs chose him and summoned him to record them the very same night that I told Ken he was going to have an experience on a ship. So thank you so much, Terry, for your story today. And Ken, yes, you were going to say something here.
Yeah, I, of course, wanted to thank Terry also for his story. And a special note to Terry, despite how cold it was, he was able to capture UFOs on his cell phone camera. He submitted it to myself and my brother who are processing it. There's a whole hour and 40 minutes. Video will be available when we post this podcast. Special software is being used to enhance and clarify a different filming process. It was very cold that night, and the UFOs also movements were very random and very erratic. So we're going to be posting the podcast next Friday, the 21st at 3 o'clock, and at the same time we'll provide a updated video on what Terry just described. And that will be on both Facebook and YouTube under our podcast name, The Believe Me Movement. And now I'm going to turn it back to you, Robin.
Well, I think Terry wanted...
a couple more seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just one thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I get very vivid memories, and I remember a lot of them. I had one a couple weeks ago, and I went to dinner with my ex-wife, and I told her I had a really weird dream, and it kept repeating. So I started thinking about God, right? And I don't think it's the Catholic version. I went to Catholic school and all this stuff, but I think God is bigger. Whatever God is bigger.
That's exactly what I'm going to talk to you about on the next show. So everybody, get prepared, because Terry is already affirming the psychic information I picked up on him. So thank you so much, Terry, for being in the seat of honor today and for our following show. We're so excited. We're going to be talking about extraterrestrials and the correlation to dreams and God. Wow, how interesting is that? I am your host, Spirit Lady Robin Alexis, along with my wonderful co-host, Ken Sylvester. This is the Believe Me Movement podcast. Ken and I both have best-selling books on Amazon. Ken's book is called We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof. So when you do go to Amazon, put in Ken Sylvester and the name of the book, We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof. Now, this show has been brought to you by RobinAlexis.com. And we have many things that we talk about on this show, not only people who have seen UFOs, had experiences with extraterrestrials, paranormal experiences, dreams, which we'll be talking about next week, and we actually offer pet healings. So when you want to come on our show, you email, I'm starting to go into alien talk, spiritlady.robin@gmail.com. That's spiritlady.robin@gmail.com. Email me at that and let me know what your subject's going to be. Because if you want a pet healing, we want to make sure that Dr. Nels Rasmussen is on our show. So this has been the Believe Me Movement podcast. We are an experience, not an explanation. Over and out for today.
Over and out.